Oh, there we are. Okay. Hey, everyone. Just getting started here. I have never done a live before. Ever. How is everyone doing? Oh, hello.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Can
Good.
Is everything sounds good? You can hear everything? Is it
I hear you great. I
awesome?
hope you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
Nice, nice.
Where are you right now?
I'm in LA. I'm at the Southern California Counseling Center main campus right now.
Which I'm in LA too. Which part of LA is that?
Like Pico near Fairfax?
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm over in Glendale.
Yeah,
East
I
side.
would have been at the Watts Center, except we're getting our internet upgraded. And so we would have no internet. so,
That
so
wouldn't
that's
work.
why we're here. Yeah.
I think okay, it's 11:58. I'm Max, by the way. We haven't met. I've
Hi, Max.
about you and watched videos. It's really nice to meet you in person.
Thank
Well,
you.
on Instagram.
Nice to meet you too. You look familiar, but I don't know why, but you do.
I get that. I have a twin brother. We can start there. That's
Okay, that yeah, there's people see you a couple times,
yeah,
different places.
yeah.
Interesting. That's cool. That's cool.
Um. So, in a moment, I will get started. I think wow, we got a bunch of folks already tuning in, which is great.
And that's
Um,
because of you, right? Because this is your show.
I think that's because of you, actually. I posted
That's cool. That'd be great. I would
and
love to think that.
it's true. I mean, we're here together, and from all over the world, no less. Turkey, Israel, England. So
Whoa, how dope is that? That's
pretty
really
dope. Pretty dope. Um, all right, so we're gonna get started. I'm everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm Max Carver. I just started. After there's an incredible organization called the Go Campaign, and I've been talking to them and following what they do for some time, and they asked me if I would become a changemaker, which essentially means support incredible heroes in communities and do what I can, my part to support Go Campaign and these individual heroes and what they do. And today, Marianne Diaz is, I don't even want to say my guest. We're privileged to have Marianne. She's going to be sharing about
Thank
her
you.
story and what she does in the community. She leads Clean Slate, which is an organization in Watts. So I'm just going to ask you some questions. And you're from Los Angeles, correct? You grew up in.
Yes, I did. I did. Had a pretty interesting growing up time. You know, poverty was had a bit of big effect on my life, and
Mm,
ended up joining a gang, and then ended up going to prison for a little while, and came out and started my own nonprofit to try to prevent kids from joining the underground economy or any of the other criminal activities that end us up in prison, because that is definitely a an impact on the community. You know, when people are gone for long periods of time, and prison really changes you. It's just really hard to describe. Yeah.
how, do you mind me? And I'd love to know more. I also want to be mindful of.
Oh, I'm an open book now. You know what I
Uh,
mean? Um, yeah. So yeah, I became a gang member, and you know, in LA, it's one of the opportunities that's there for people who don't have many things to choose from,
mm,
as far as and you know, and the effects of systemic oppression and racism and poverty and all that kind of lead you towards that path. You know, you get support from other people who are going through the same thing. It's, you know, I like to say it's not much different than what's going on right now in some places where people are holding on to certain ideas that don't make sense. But
mm,
but at the time it does. You know what I mean? It makes sense. And when I came out, I got a lot of support from a deputy sheriff who was really unusual, right? I got a lot of support from a deputy sheriff, the same one who arrested me, which is really a trip.
No kidding.
Yeah,
How,
yeah.
how long were you in?
What's that?
How long were you in?
4 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But he did tell me he'd be there when I got out, and he knew that I had a different purpose. And that, that's why, I always believe there's always those people who you come across that
Mm.
will change your life. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
he was one of those people. And then later on, the counseling center where I became, I'm now a director here, and starting my own nonprofit, and then Go Campaign. I mean, they came into our orbit at such a wonderful time when things were really good, and we were rolling around, and then COVID hit. You know, and COVID hit, and I will honestly say I don't think we would be operational if it wasn't for Go Campaign.
So, Marianne, I'd love to know kind of the history of Clean Slate,
Mm-hmm.
how you started, what your mission was, what services, what kind of change you were trying to engender in the community, how that's over time. It sounds like that mission has grown and really started with a very simple mission and kind of a purpose of removing tattoos, if I
Yeah.
understand the story correctly. If the gang tattoo, the insignia gets in the way of employment opportunities or marks you as a person, and it's about kind of cleaning that past so you get a fresh start, so you're not held to this. Really, this, it sounds like we have to take responsibility, but like I can imagine from what you already described about the community that it's we have to understand that how hard it must be to not get pulled into that kind of life,
Yeah, yeah,
given the
it is difficult because the opportunities don't really, they don't invite you in either. You know what I mean? So yeah, so Clean Slate started because when I got out, and before I went in, I mean, let's be honest, I had a lot of tattoos, and it was, most of them were gang related, and that's important when you're a gang member. I mean, you know, it was just like when you wear your Letterman jacket and stuff like that. You want people to know, who you are, where you're from. Um, but it didn't serve me when I came. Well, let me back up. It did serve me when I came out, because the job that I got when I first came out was with the county and doing gang intervention work. And so when other gang members saw me, they knew I was a fellow, you know, member, not theirs, but I belonged to the community or the culture.
uh
And started creating peace agreements between gangs and stuff with a whole team. I mean, it wasn't me. I mean, we had a bunch of people working at the county. But then I started realizing that people who weren't in gangs really got nervous around me,
mm.
because a lot of them were on my hands, you know.
So they'd
And
see it.
so you could see them. There's no way to cover them. And so I started thinking, like, I'm not the person that they think I am. I mean, I was, but I'm not now.
Mm.
But their opinion of me doesn't change.
Mm.
They still seem like they wouldn't want me around their kids, or go into the schools, wouldn't want me to go work in the schools. There are things that. So I went in, I looked into getting my tattoos removed. The laser had just come out. The laser tattoo removal
uh
possibility had just come out, and they quoted me $10,000. And I had a job, but I couldn't afford $10,000. You know what I mean? I had kids still. You know, I mean, there are things I was doing. I was raising kids. So I thought, well, maybe I need to do this for myself. So I talked to a surgeon in San Pedro, who was willing to take, payments. Like, can I pay you payments? And he was, yeah, I'll do that as a community service. I'll do that for you. You look like you're trying really hard to move forward in your life and stuff. He did that. So from that concept, I felt that a lot of people would want tattoo removal. They don't mind paying for it, but like anything in our society, it just has to be fair. Just be fair. Don't only offer things to people who are privileged enough to have the money to pay for it.
right.
Find a way to give it to people who want it, who need it, and would be willing to provide some kind of financial portion, but don't keep it out of reach. And the people who really need it, you know? So I kept finding doctors who were willing to volunteer. And then we trained our own technicians, and now we're kind of doing it on our own. We have our own technicians. We bought our own lasers.
No
Um,
way.
Yeah, we have our own lasers. We've been doing this since 1995.
Right.
So, and what the tattoo removal did was people would pay sliding scale fees, and what that did, that supported our youth empowerment programs and our street dreams programs. Which this is amazing. Go's been a part of this, so I'm just one. We do kids learn yoga, they learn mindfulness, they learn. There's this thing called Diksha meditation. I mean, they learn all these things, and we take them on cultural outings, and we take them out to cultural meals. Of course, we can't do it now because of the COVID thing, but we were very active in introducing youth to alternatives to the things that are offered to them to deal with their stress and their frustration, which sometimes is drugs and violence, right? Drugs, violence, and alcohol, those things. And so we gave them ways that don't require altering, your system to cope, and they love it. They love it. We had kids who started at like 11. We have new 11-year-olds and 10-year-olds that do it every day. They meditate and they get through life because I'm going to say this. I don't know if everybody would agree with me, but I think poverty is violence against people.
I agree.
Period.
100%.
So I think kids feel there's violence being wielded against them, especially if you're people of color
Yeah.
in communities that are seen as less trustful, more suspicious, and dangerous. So, so we want to give them ways to cope with all that pressure that they have growing up and trying to maintain a life that is, fruitful. I mean, we all want to be happy.
I'm, I can, I mean, my problem, not to get too far off topic, but when it comes to poverty, if worth and value in our culture is just about how much money you have in the bank, like it's just completely backwards. And, you know, in my own recovery, because I have a history with mental illness and drug abuse, and I've never been public about that at all. But I wish I had learned those tools that you're talking about in terms of mindfulness and learning how to process feelings in a healthy way, where I start to learn how to value myself, um, and value what's going on with me in a way where I can meet myself with love. That would have saved me so much heartache later on.
Yeah.
I would have made different choices, I believe. Fortunately, it all happens the way it's going to happen, but mindfulness and those small things of like showing someone how to get in touch with themselves instead of trying to fix themselves out here is just so important. And I can imagine, um, in that environment that you're describing, there's more to contend with. A lot.
Yeah, the impact it's had on some of our kids, because some of the kids that came to us years ago, were kids who were sent to us because they were told by their schools, right,
Mm-hmm.
that you're not gonna accomplish anything.
Mm-hmm.
You're not gonna do anything. They were, ditching a lot, F students, whatever. And then they started coming to us for the group counseling, which is really vital, group counseling. And I mean, many of them they said they never graduated. Almost all of them have graduated from high school. Most of them are going to college. Some are raising kids now, and they're bringing them to the meditations, and because they know how it helped them.
Mm-hmm.
I think the way we look at people is so wrong. I mean, you got to look for their strengths and their resiliency rather than their deficits. Because that's when people start to feel that that's who they are. They start to feel like I'm a deficit, right? Like there's something wrong with me. But if you look at how they're able to, I mean, look at kids right now with this COVID thing. How many kids are still standing and they can't be around other kids? They can't have any peers around them physically, and they're still trying to finish school. They're still trying to do what they need to do. Kids are really, I think they are the investment we need to make is in the kids, you
No
know.
doubt.
And that's what Go Campaign means to me, because like right now we have this program that we're doing. It's the Hands Across Watts initiative, and we're providing the counseling piece to it. And it is so amazing that, you know, they're doing the physical stuff, they're doing the education piece, and the kids get the emotional support from the counseling. And
And
then
is
we help their parents be that emotional support.
right, because it's not just one person. Like, I think the other thing is we in our culture identify as one person with problems. When it's a community, it has to be the community has to change, and we all have to look at the way we talk to each other and process our feelings. And it starts with one, but it's anyways. I'm good. I'm getting off topic. I want to.
Excuse me.
Oh,
I have allergies. Allergies. That's what it is.
I know everyone's afraid of a cough now. So sorry. So I'd love to know. You've described the work that you've been doing. How's that being affected by COVID? Is COVID having a huge impact? You've been talking a lot about group counseling and community stuff, so I imagine that's been negatively impacted by COVID. What what changes have you seen in terms of what kids need now? Now with being more isolated, I'm assuming what do kids need, and how are you trying to help? What do you need help with?
Yeah, we're, you know, obviously everything we're doing is virtual now. We do make some small moves into seeing some kids live with the right kind of protocols in place, you know, with the barriers and the masks and the hand washing and the what's that called?
Sanitize.
The sanitizers, yeah, and all that. We do a little bit of that. We don't want to do a lot because we don't want to encourage the idea that we don't have to do that anymore, because we do. Even though things are getting better, we still have to follow those protocols until we're completely out of the woods. You know what I mean? But how's it impacted us is that in Watts, particularly Watts, the community we serve, internet isn't a given. You know, well, stable internet definitely isn't a given, and access to that internet is not a given, and also devices to be able to do like what we're doing right now.
Right.
You know, we've had a device drive where we've gotten used devices, like what's that called, gently used devices, and we handed them out to the community, and that really helped them a lot in attending their counseling and their groups and stuff. You know, we still need school supplies. We still need stuff for the kids. We can get them to them. They still, I mean, especially a lot of their parents are unemployed now. They're essential workers, so they are taking the bigger risks, you know, on the community, and they're still working at a ridiculous wage. You know what I mean?
How
Yeah.
how do you have time to do anything if you're getting paid $8 an hour? You can't live on that, no
Yeah.
matter how hard you work. It's absurd.
Yeah. I'm sorry, you're gonna hear the phone ringing in the back.
Oh,
So I think, you know, supporting too the work we're doing would be really great is if like we could get people who were interested in supporting our counseling sessions.
and
You know,
how would
because
you?
I still have to support my staff, you know what I mean, regardless, because they volunteer a lot of their time. They volunteered a lot of time during the heavy COVID surges and stuff, but they need to live too. I mean, we're all trying to survive this. You know, like $10, $20 donations can go a long way for the people we're serving. You know, we can provide snacks, or we can get them some supplies they need, or we can actually, if we get enough donations, you know, we can get somebody a device, a used one or a new one, get it. That way we can also support food. I'm telling you, man, it isn't just a shortage of food. Some people have a lack of food, period.
No food.
No food.
Starving, hungry
And
kids.
hungry kids. They're very hungry.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it isn't because their parents aren't trying. It's because some are not working. Some of the jobs have shut down. I work personally with 3 or 4 parents who have lost their jobs. And we would charge them $25 or $20 a counseling session. Now we're charging them $5. We want them to stay. You don't want them to leave. You
Yeah,
know,
I'm sorry.
I know it sucks, right?
Um, I'm going to take this opportunity actually to speak to everyone. If you're just joining us, I'm here on behalf of Go Campaign with Marianne Diaz, who is leads Clean Slate, which is this incredible organization um, in Watts, but in Los Angeles, and really kind of an example for everywhere else. And right now, we're doing this partly just to share a message, but also to raise funds for an incredible organization and support these kinds of organizations that help out our communities, particularly children in our communities. A little bit about Go Campaign, if you're just joining us. This is Go Campaign's 15th year anniversary. It's an organization that helps local heroes. So far, Go Campaign has supported 172 local heroes. They've funded 464 projects focused on education, vocational training, health, orphan care, and enrichment programs for youth. They've improved the lives and helped to improve the lives with the help of people like Marianne Diaz of over 178,000 children across 37 countries. And during this past year, they've granted more than $700,000 in funding to help ensure that the world's most vulnerable children are safe, healthy, and fed during these unprecedented times of COVID. So, Marianne, another question. I can imagine the kind of work you do has all sorts of ups and downs. You get to see these incredible transformations. I'm sure there's plenty of heartbreak as well. I'm sure things that are discussed or talked about can be painful. What inspires you to keep showing up? Because the work you do is so important. Are there any personal anecdotes that you can share with our viewers today?
Yeah. We had a youth who came to us and was pregnant, very like 14,
What?
14 years old, and her family, her school, kind of put her on the track of your life is over, basically.
Mm,
Um, and her social workers and people who were involved, because social workers, Department of Children and Family Services, get involved quite often with the communities that I serve, because, well, because they're under a microscope. That's the way systemic oppression works. The people with the least resources are usually seen with the most problems, and so they're
right.
seen under a microscope. And
Ostracized.
yes, yes. So
You're
um,
what's wrong with you?
yeah,
How can
why are you poor? You know, why,
you work harder?
how come you're poor? And you know what I mean? Like like you choose it. Like, oh, because I want to be poor. I mean,
Yeah,
really, it's a historical thing. If you go back the way certain communities have been treated, I mean, it's a wonder that we survive and we stand in spite of all that. Well, anyway, she thought that she was going to get kicked out of our group and stuff. She was ashamed. But who made her ashamed? It wasn't us. It was society made her ashamed of being pregnant and young. And people were saying, of course, you're Latina, you know what I mean? Of course, it's kind of like the stereotype and stuff.
right.
Well, we
When
kept her in our group. She kept coming back. She stayed with us.
mm,
And today she's got a master's degree in child care or child services, that she did on her own without the help of anybody other than not ever missing her counseling. She always came. And when she, and that's what inspires me, is that if I look back, I know tons of people who were given up on, and somehow I'm one of them. You might have been one of them. It's possible people said, oh well, they're not going to accomplish anything. My family kept the rest of the family away from me because I joined a gang, and saw me as a problem.
mm,
Well, find out why that became appealing to me, and and be there.
mm.
Um, that didn't happen. So I found people who would be there for me. in any way that makes sense. People just want to be affirmed. And so by our being there for this now woman who was a child,
Mm.
she felt affirmed in the fact that she could still have a life, even with kids. You know what I mean? Which is kind of, they made her feel really bad for having it, and her kids are so well taken care of. It's a trip. Um, all kinds of stuff like that. Kids who said, you know, that they're never going to graduate. They're bad news. They're trouble. They're going to wind up in prison. They haven't. They haven't. And that's the whole point of the work that I'm doing. Is I know that if you're given an alternative, this is important. Give an alternative that makes sense. Not all alternatives work for everybody. Do you know
No,
what I mean?
no.
Like they offered, I'm not clowning them, but they offered me the Girl Scouts, right? When I was like 10 or something. My parents couldn't afford that. There's no way they could afford that. It's not a cheap thing to be a part of. You know what I mean? We
Mm.
have to do sports. Sports aren't free anymore. You
Mm.
know, you have to pay for them. So some of those things that kids used to have as alternatives don't exist anymore. Not, well, anyway, let me say this. In certain communities, they
In
don't exist anymore.
arts programs, after
Yeah.
school programs,
None of
child.
it.
No,
Music,
yeah,
music, all that. So what are kids expected to do? You know, if you're going to take away all the things that they might be interested in, that's why this Hands Across Watts initiative is so important, because we're
mm.
providing them with science,
Hmm.
math that makes sense. It's fun. It's interesting. It's not boring.
Well,
Um,
there was.
Counseling and
Sorry, go.
boxing. I think they have a boxing program too that they're doing. So there's, you know, kids. That's inspiring to me. Is that kids are, their potential is limitless, but you have to give them the tools to aspire. You know, if they're not, if they're not, what you see around you is, you know, a lack of resources, judgment, bias against you, you know, um, no resource. I mean, what are you supposed to do? And in COVID, let's just throw that in there, you know,
Right.
and the disproportionate amount of people who are dying from COVID in our community because the lack of resources. And, you know, kids, you know, kids are impacted greatly by the fear of their parents dying or their grandparents dying or them dying or people around them dying. Or in the other part, a lot of our kids are afraid their parents are, not as much now, and I hope this doesn't come up too political, but not as much now, but afraid that ICE was going to come pick them up.
Yeah.
We dealt with that for the last 4 years.
Just fight or flight in your brain
Absolutely.
all day, every day, high stress. What are you going to do to relieve that stress if you don't have healthy options? You're going to do whatever you can because it's hell on earth. It's where
Absolutely.
all those things come in. It's
And
just,
what you just said, hell on earth, that's why jail was not frightening to me.
yeah.
You know, because if you don't have anything better, I mean, they'll take care of you at least. You know what I mean?
It's already in here. It's just now it's out here. Okay. This makes
Yeah.
sense. So,
Yeah.
is there a moment for you where someone offered you kind of that opportunity or that gift or that time, that service, a moment that sticks out that I guess I'm asking for a personal anecdote where someone affirmed you where you were at? You talked about the deputy, but
Mm-hmm.
before that, in prison, or what kind of, I consider what you do to be more than just a career. It's vocational. It is this incredible calling. What was kind of the first call or the knock, if you look back?
You know, this is going to sound really crazy, but at 5 years old, kindergarten is five, right? 5 or 6.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I was at a school and I was like the only person of color in that school. And I remember all the kids lined up for the slide. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
important, you know, the slide. And I was like 10 people back. And then these other 3 girls who happened to be blonde just took cuts, went in the very front. And I remember I wasn't thinking so much about me, but I was thinking about all the people who are in line.
Mm.
You know, I was saying, yeah, I'll wait. But the people in line behind them, I was infuriated. I went up to him, told him, you can't take cuts. That's not fair, you know. And they laughed at me and kind of like went at me in a way. I guess they didn't know I was kind of I was from the hood. So I was probably not the right person to mess with. You know what I mean? Anyway, what happened was, well, I guess that, they left the line, obviously. And I got in trouble. I got in really serious trouble. And the teacher put me inside of the equipment box and allowed the kids to throw shit at me. Okay,
Really?
I just did shit. I'm sorry. To throw stuff at me. and and I thought then, I said, this is unfair. So as I grew, what that stuck with me, because as I grew up, I started thinking, how many people are doing things out of a sense of integrity and fairness and are seen as a problem because they're rattling the status quo, or they're challenging racism or sexism or homophobia. They're changing, but people see it as violence and they see it as anger. And so I decided that in my whatever I decided to do, I was going to grow that part of in kids that is not recognized.
Mm.
Right? So their integrity, their loyalty, their their ability to stick with something, their hopefulness,
Mm.
all those things. I didn't want to concentrate on the stuff that people were saying was wrong with them. And
Mm.
that's what I think changed my life, is that at some point in school, a teacher said, people have gotten you all wrong all this time. They see you as scary and intense and violent, and you just stand for justice. It just, it stuck with me. So that's what I believe in the work, is to support people, to stand for justice and equity and what's right, you know, instead of putting like more burdens on people who have been given a short stick anyway in life. They're not given the same opportunities from birth. So yeah, and also I'm going to say this too. Getting the job at the Southern California Counseling Center, I was, you know, I'm a felon. I mean, let's say I'm a felon, right? And they do background checks, because you're going to be working with kids, and I was coming on as a counselor and stuff. And when they saw my my record, they're like, "Well, this is a long record. We've never seen anything like this. But we think that you are going to be the one to touch the communities that we need to support. It's great that we're kind of on the west side and people are coming to us for counseling and stuff, but we want to reach people who are in the communities that don't get served." Right? That made a difference for me. It showed that there are such well-intended people like Scott Pfeiffer. I mean, he doesn't have to do this. I mean, he could chill out and, hang out wherever he's at, but he's on a mission to help kids around the world. And he has people in his organization that's their focus. We're going to help children. And then they find agencies that have the same focus.
Mm.
So I've had so many people have come into my life that have changed, enriched me, enriched what I was trying to do, saw me. I think if people could be seen, that for their true feelings, that would make a difference.
So what I'm hearing about this work that you do is the solution oriented. Let's change the message one person at a time, where they can be affirmed for what they have to offer, be given an opportunity to be valued, and to really have a safe, clear the path a little bit where they can see themselves in an accurate way, or a way that's healthy for them, and really move forward on their path in a way that, like someone like me, I didn't grow up in that same environment. I grew up with a lot of privilege. I don't have to think about that stuff. I have plenty of my own things that I have to work through,
Mm.
whatever. But for example, I was in therapy right before this. I don't have to worry about how that's going to be paid for.
Right.
I have insurance.
Right.
It's something I take for granted. And I believe that mental health is a right. You know, it's not something that should be privileged or something. It's sad that it is privileged. It's sad
Yeah.
that what you're talking about, the things that you're talking about, are considered to be privileges. They shouldn't be. They should be. They're children that are hungry, that need support, that need healthy environments, that need to be validated and affirmed. Um, those shouldn't be privileges. Those should be rights. And it sounds like you're in the community saying, I'm going to make sure that these needs are met because they are human needs and they deserve to be met.
Right. And it only happens with, I believe, with a collaboration of community members, which means that, you know, what I really can, I hope this okay. So what I really believe is what has happened to our society is that we have become and this is the American way, individualistic, you
Yes.
know, and like I have to worry about me, there's this idea that people stand on their own. Community heals, because that's who we really are as a people. Community is what makes things feel less overwhelming, because you have a group of people. That's why gangs flourish, you know, because you need to have that support of people around you. But to believe that we can survive on our own is just, but that makes sense to capitalism, right? It makes sense, but it doesn't make sense to healthy lives. It makes sense to money. It makes sense to that stuff, but it doesn't make sense to nurturing a healthy environment for kids to grow up in, because then all they want is stuff, you
Right.
know, they just want stuff, and they don't deal with what's going on inside.
As if that.
What's, like that's like what's happening inside. I don't care, because I'll just, I'll get on this tablet or whatever, and you know or get in my car, and everybody's trying to get the stuff that does obviously make our country like move, because we need to sell stuff, but it doesn't soothe the soul. That's what's so important about the mindfulness, the meditation, the counseling, the alternatives to get kids creative. Oh
Mm.
man, kids are they're creative, but if you don't have the resources or the tools to be creative, what do you do?
Or yeah, just someone to facilitate.
Mm-hmm.
Think,
Or even to watch what you're doing,
yeah.
to support you in that. I remember being I used to play. I used to be a pretty good volleyball player. Hard to tell now because I'm old, but I was a pretty good volleyball player. And both my parents had to work several jobs. We were poor.
Mm.
Part of the reason why I think it didn't matter to me is because they could never be there. Do you know what I mean? So it didn't matter. It didn't matter. People could clap and say how great I was, but it didn't matter. My parents couldn't be there because they couldn't afford to be there, right? And so when people say, "God, I wish parents were more involved," well, then give them like living wages. If you want them to be more involved with their kids, don't make them work 3 jobs. Help them like support their kids. People shouldn't live in such poverty that they can't even be with their kids.
And short of that, the community aspect that you're talking about, like, those are systemic changes that I believe need to happen. I mean, we're in agreement, but in
Yes.
the meantime, how can we? And this is why I love Go Campaign is you are uniquely qualified based off of your experience and your access to the community and your understanding of the community, and Go Campaign has identified you as a leader and a healer, and has gone, okay, we need to, instead of going in and dictating what needs to happen here in this community, kind of like Tom's shoes, where it's like, we're just going to give away free shoes. No, we don't want shoes. What are you talking about? Go Campaign is supports essentially grassroots organizations that
Yes.
are doing the work, meeting the needs of the community the way that they need to be met, because the community is saying this is what we need, and you're uniquely qualified to be in there. I'm driving at viewers watching this. I don't think you understand, if you're watching this at home, how far these donations go and what they mean. $2, $5, $10. more if you can. I know times are tough, but snacks, just sustenance for people as they're
Mm-hmm.
doing their work. An iPad for a kid who doesn't have access to counseling services. I don't think you know what kind of an impact that might have. Again, it's just is if there's a moment where someone who feels that they don't belong here or don't deserve to be here or have nothing to offer and that changes, that's not one person. It affects the whole community. It affects everyone around them. It changes the course of freaking human history as far as I'm concerned. It's worth it. I don't think I'm overstating this.
You're
If you
not.
have $2, $5 that you can give, it's watching some of the content. There's a kid right now in Watts who has the cure for cancer in his brain. And as crazy as it sounds, if he gets some goldfish and an apple today so he can focus better on his schoolwork, we've walked that much closer to making that happen. So please, I believe there's a link below in here. We're doing a live fundraiser, mostly to talk about the work that you're doing and share this with people and bring some attention, much needed attention to this kind of work and more like the heroic person you are
Right.
and what that's really about. But also, so far I see we have $212. That's huge.
It is.
That's a
It's
win.
great. I just noticed it right now on the bottom.
Yeah,
Whoa, that's great. Yeah.
that's huge.
Yeah.
Um,
You
I'm
know,
gonna,
the one thing I haven't mentioned that I think is important
yeah,
is that what we have seen in our counseling is a lot more kids that are dealing with um, self-harm
yeah,
and thoughts of suicide because they're so isolated.
yeah.
And so that's what's important about maintaining our groups for the kids to come to, for our community activities, for them to, even if it's virtual, to be able to connect with other people, you know,
Mm,
and to have counseling so that they can talk about, you know, the effects of isolation on them and the inability to have gone to their school dance this year or go on their field trip or go to the football games or all the things that they used to do in their normal life, how much they miss of what a lot of us got to take for granted. Because when I grew up, I mean, there wasn't any restrictions on who I could go around or be around. And so that is like a life-saving thing that with Go Campaign we're able to do, is provide the counseling.
mm.
And many of the kids we've worked with said just having that hour every week makes a difference.
Oh, yeah. Um, I'll say this now. If you guys donate, I will happily match it. No problem. So please throw some money at this. Not that money solves problems, but it does solve
It,
problems.
it solves access problems.
It's
That's
all
for sure.
does solve problems.
Yes.
Um, so I suppose is is there anything in terms of the future of this organization? You started. I'm going to run it back a little bit for those who are joining us. I don't know how Instagram Live works, how many people are watching. 156 people watching. Um, you started by removing tattoos, this kind of physical thing, this stigmatized thing on the body that says, "Hey, don't look at me. I'm bad," which is BS. But that's how this started. And now you've moved to reaching out to kids in your community, providing counseling, providing meditation, workshops, just ways for kids to essentially fall in love with themselves in a healthy way. What's the vision for the future?
Wow. Well, the immediate one is for us to get back together again physically. That'd be awesome. Um, but expanding our services, creating programs that will bring kids together. I think cultural programs are very important. Uh, um, Programs that focus in on creativity, arts. The arts are really vital
Yeah.
to kids. I would love to have an arts program at Clean Slate where we teach music, um, photography, of course, music, hip hop, you know, uh, working engineering music. I mean, to be an engineer in a studio,
Yeah.
that'd be great. I know a few kids who are really good. They do good lyrics, good beats, but they don't have the money to go into a studio. You know what I
Right.
mean? And do something. So they do a lot on their, on their iPads and things like that. Um, so yeah, I'd like to really extend our services to bring in more of the arts that are availed to people who are more privileged than the kids that we have in our community
Mm.
that don't, you know, they can't. If there was a way of them securing a keyboard or an instrument or something, I mean, who knows? We may have another. Um, I don't know. I don't want to date myself, so I'll say a little baby out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the community who can really make some music that really speaks to people and also pulls them out of poverty.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm gonna date myself, Kendrick Lamar.
there you go, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kendrick Lamar. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's out of the community. Yeah,
Yeah.
him, and some that we've lost. Um, but I think that is the goal that we want to get to, and then also, in we do work with a lot of parents, so I think helping change the relationship between parents and kids in an oppressive environment. Parents don't mean to be mean. They're just they're frustrated and stressed out, and and kids still gonna ask for what the kid wants.
Mm.
Kids do that. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And it's painful to not be able to do that for your children. And so I think sometimes parents just they out of anger they say things that they don't really mean and they hurt the kids. Um, Trauma. Our community faces a lot of trauma. I'd like to really expand it. We do trauma informed work, but I'd like to really make a full blown trauma program. That
EMD,
that'd be really important.
uh, somatic work.
Hmm. Yeah, somatic and some like we have this called CRIM, Community Resiliency, which really focuses on staying inside of a resiliency zone and knowing when you're out of it, and so that way you make different decisions. you know, and being familiar with how your body reacts to stuff. It's really important. Like when like, oh, and sometimes what you're reacting to is old trauma, not what's happening right now.
Might not even be your trauma. Might be your grand.
Absolutely. And hey, I'm talking to a counselor too, right? You seem to know a lot about this. It's great.
I know what I know. I just think everyone should have the same opportunities I've had.
I hey, I feel the exact same way you do, man. I wish that we all had the opportunities. I don't know what opportunities you've had, but I hope that I wish kids had the opportunities I've had to run into people who are willing to take the chance on them.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Taking a chance on somebody.
Show up, safe space you can go to consistently, where you can
Yep.
start to trust someone and be seen for who you are instead of who you're afraid you are, and deal with the
And
part you're afraid of too, because you have to do that as well.
yeah,
And
you do. You do.
responsibility.
Yeah,
But
and then the people they decide who you are. People outside decide who you are by what they see. They don't even give it a chance. And that is very true when you see people respond to. I do this a lot in my training when they respond to a person of color who is being assertive.
mm, right,
Yeah,
right, right.
they see them as being angry,
You're being
you know,
difficult. You
and
need to stop.
scary. You
Oh,
know, and so like those kind of things have to change. I mean, you have people have to learn that people are affected by past traumas, and you also are seeing people through a lens that you have been conditioned to see.
yeah,
You know,
the big lie. Oh boy. Um. Well, I'm so glad I met you. I want to come down. That's the one thing. Again, I'm gonna sing Go Campaign's praises and your praises, but it's just direct
go campaign.
involvement in the community. There, present. This isn't some abstract like we're gonna help kids someday. You are helping kids every day.
Yep.
Uh,
Boots
meet
on the ground, man.
boots on the ground.
Boots
Most
on the ground.
I'd love to be there with you and learn from you and see how to support. Obviously, once it's safe to do so.
Yeah. When the pandemic is lifted, you will be with us when we're doing some of those distributions of backpacks and things like that, because we do that, and they're needed. Oh, by the way, backpacks, they're
Back.
needed. They're
So,
needed.
can you run us through, like, right now? Again, if you're joining us, we got 171 people watching. Um, what are the just to let us know, like, what do you need? What do you need?
I'll
Very
tell you,
simple question.
we had 300 backpacks and they were gone in a half an hour.
Wow.
People were driving up in it because you had to drive up to get them and stuff. And the one thing that we heard from the parents was like, "Are there supplies inside?" And we were like, "Man, we don't have supplies." So those two things go hand in hand, backpacks and school supplies, because they're still doing school, either going to a community center or doing it from home,
Mm,
online. Um, Food,
mm,
and that can be done through gift cards or whatever. It doesn't have to be cash, but if you make a donation to Go Campaign, they'll make sure that the community gets it. They
mm.
always do. I count on them. They have shown up so many times when we were in dire needs. When they know the kids are suffering, they show up, and when they know their agencies are suffering, they show up. I just want to make that point. We didn't have to ask for help. When the pandemic hit and we shut down, they came to us.
No way.
Yeah, they came to us and said, "What can we do? How can we help you?" And I said, "I still want to pay my staff. You know what I mean? And I can't." And they said, "You will." And
Wow.
they helped us. So that's the kind of organization Go Campaign is. Like they think about what might be needed as well, and then
Right.
ask us. They don't say, "I think you need this." They say, "How can we help?"
We've been thinking of you. We imagine this must be difficult. Can we help? Yeah. Wow.
As a trip. I mean, I think that as far as foundations or whatever, usually you have to go and beg for, you have to do all kinds of paperwork and beg for the money. They came to us and said, "How can we help you?"
Beautiful.
And it's like, we don't have clinics right now. We're not making any funds. They showed up,
Mm.
and we're still standing. So they got us through the hard time. Got us through the hard times, which is amazing. And I know I'm not alone. I mean, there's a lot of agencies out there that they are supporting, not of course not just in LA, but everywhere across the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really, that sticks out in my mind a lot, is that I didn't have to ask, because it's kind of, you have to get a little humble to do that. you know so they came to us first, and I thought that meant a lot.
Well, what you're doing is so important. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Doug. Yeah.
I to everyone at home or work, wherever you're watching, uh, I hope you've gotten a lot out of this conversation. I have. Please, if you can support, just sharing this is supporting. It's if you, it's not about funds. If you can donate, that's beautiful. If you can't, no worries. We don't need your money. This isn't about that. But if you can share this message and this hero and what she does,
Thanks. I feel
community.
so weird, but yeah, thank you.
Nah, come on. Um, that would be beautiful. And again, I'll say this: I am going to match donations given today, no problem. And I can't wait to meet you in person whenever that is. Hopefully soon.
I hope so too.
And cheers to Go Campaign for putting this together and for really kind of being this beautiful, supportive organization that really helps kids everywhere. Thank you for today.
Thank you, man. And remember, our kids are the heroes. They're doing it.
They
All
are.
right.
Thank you.